All right, here's the overview of the Hifonics Zeus ZG-1200.1D. So let me start off by saying, make sure you check out my other two videos on this amp. I did a 1 ohm dyno and a 2 ohm dyno. Definitely check those out. I'm gonna be honest, I've done a lot of little budget amps already, some little cheaper amps. I usually like them. They put out, you know, enough power to push a sub or two. Some of them are a little better than others, but I'll be honest, so far, this is my favorite budget amp. Hifonics is a name that's been around since, well, it says on here since 1981. But back in the day, in the late 80s and early 90s, I got into car audio in 92. But back in the day, Hifonics was one of the main brands. Rockford, Orion, Soundstream, Hifonics. There was some others, but those were some of the bigger names. And a couple of those companies have gotten a little bit cheaper with their products and started using max power ratings and things such as that. And some of the companies didn't do that at all. Rockford Fosgate is one of those companies. So Hifonics did go a little cheaper on their amps and fudge on their power ratings and some of that, but I will be honest, I think they landed kind of middle of the road between the really budget amps that lie a lot, you know, the kind of amp that'll say it's 1,000 watts and it's really 200, and the amps that say they're 1,000 watts and they actually do 1,200 watts. Hifonics, I think, landed somewhere in the middle, so they're still pretty cheap. I'll be honest with you, this amp can be bought on Amazon. It fluctuates in price, I've noticed. Before I picked it up, I've been looking at it for a while, and I saw the price changing a little bit, but you can have it shipped with tax to your door from between $100 and $120. That's definitely what I would call a budget amp. Now, here's the thing about these budget amps. If you spend a little bit more than that, once you get up to about the $150 to $200 range, then you come out really good on your power. You come out about 10 cents a watt eventually. But when you're still in the 125, 100, 75 or $50 range, there's still some nice amps, but I will just say they're not quite the value that you get if you step up to that 150 plus. You can really do well in that $150 to $200 range on what you get versus what you pay. But anyhow, I really like this amp a lot. It's my favorite one so far for the little budget amps. So it's a 1200, they call it a 1200 watt amp. Let's look at this here on the box. And this is the only power ratings, by the way. There's none in the paperwork for the power ratings right here on the box. And the box does not say if it's max or RMS, but you got English way over here. So 4 ohms, 300 watts, 2 ohms, 600 watts, 1 ohm, 1,200 watts. If you notice, it does not say max or RMS. But anyhow, in my other videos, you can see how this amp lights up really cool with this black lettering with the blue that's around it. Looks super cool to me. It's nice and even. These ends light up really nice. There's LEDs, you can kind of see them. There's LEDs up in there in the top, but these ends light up really nice. All right, so while we're here, let's take a look at this. RCA's in, high level in, gain, bass EQ, phase, has a subsonic filter, which is awesome, a low pass, and a remote out. So it does have bass knob, By the way, it comes with the cable, stickers, screws, you know, the usual stuff. So it does have a bass knob. Let's look at the other end. I like the inputs on this. Instead of blade style terminals, they've stepped up a little bit. And you've got some 4 gauge power and ground, and you got a remote that's 8 gauge, and then the 8 speaker. They also, with spending just a little bit more on an amp, you get the 2 negatives, 2 positives. This is a monoblock class D, but it's really nice having the 2 positives, 2 negatives. I think it's super cool that it came with the bigger fuse. It's a 60 amp fuse. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's the big fuse. You can see how it, the maxi, I think is what they call that. Kind of neat. I just think it looks neat. I know those aren't as readily available, but it's neat looking. So I don't know, really nice looking amps. Got the thing on the bottom, power from the gods. I don't know, really like this amp. I'll be honest with you, it surprised me on what it did. So I'd kind of gotten used to what the little cheaper amps were putting out. This had a 60 amp fuse. I told my son, I said, I bet you this amp does about 400 watts at 1 ohm. And we had it for about a week before I tested it. I told him that 2 or 3 times. I thought it was going to do about 400 watts. All I can say is make sure you check out my other 2 videos because it surprised me. I'll tell you this, it does not do 1200. But still, this is not a 200 watt amp. And this amp definitely puts out enough power to power a sub or 2. If you're gonna get an entry level sub or 2, you know, don't get a Sundown X or a Sundown Z series and expect this amp to push those. But if you get some entry level subs, and all brands make entry level subs, including Sundown, you get the Sundown LCS or Sundown Ease, something like that, or you know, there's a bunch, the entry level kickers, and everybody has entry level subs. Back in the day in '92, I'll be honest with you, most of our subwoofers were only about 150 watts a piece. We didn't need big amps back in the day, and the amps that we thought were big amps nowadays are little amps. We didn't need but a couple 100 watts. In fact, my first 3 or 4 amps weren't even that. They were like 80 watt amps. But get those kind of subs that are only rated for, you know, a couple 100 watts a piece or something, this amp will do it. And, you know, talking about the old days, this would have been a big amp back in the day with what it put out. The physical size of it, because it's a class D, you know, it's kind of small, but I'm just saying power-wise, this would have been a big amp in the early 90s. I'm not saying we didn't have stuff bigger than this. We did. You didn't see a lot of guys running around with it, though. We saw it in magazines, and we didn't have the internet back then, but, you know, anyhow, this would have been a real powerful amp back in the day. All right, so let's check these out real quick. It comes with a wiring thing for your subs, which is kind of cool. It just tells you the series, parallel, and then it even tells you here like best, okay, not recommended, do not attempt. So pretty neat. I haven't seen that come with any other amps yet. And then the guide is just 1 page folded in thirds that also talks about how to hook it up in your car, and the speaker terminals and the power and ground and the remote, and that's it. There's really no power ratings here. Here's the amps that are in this series. It'd be cool, I think, to try out a couple of these bigger ones. But this is the ZG series, so it's called the Zeus Gamma. So there's a couple different Zeuses, but this is the Zeus Gamma. So the ZG-1200.1D, 18.1, 24.1, 32.1. Then in the multi-channels, 604, 1204, 1202. Be pretty cool if you needed to. These should be high-low, full-range amps. These will probably do you pretty well on some door speakers or some 6x9s. I'd like to get one of these large, like the 2400 or the 3200, and test it out too, maybe. I don't know. we will see. But I'll be honest with you, I'm a fan of this amp. I like it better than I thought I was going to. So anyhow, thanks for watching. Make sure you check out those other 2 videos to see what kind of power she does. All right, thanks for watching.